Okay, good morning, ladies. I'm here for real this time. I apologize for being late. It doesn't seem to matter what stage of life you're at. You always feel like once it gets to the next stage, things will be calm. And when my kids are a little bigger, or when my kids are grown, or whatever, and we think that stage will be so much easier and less hectic and less frantic than this one is. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it really won't be. There's always something that's going to go on. Anyway, I apologize for being late. We live in a multi-generational household, and sometimes that means that mornings and things are interesting. So anyway, I'm glad to finally be here, even though I'm late. But anyway, wanted to talk a little bit about getting organized and applying the 80-20 rule to organizing. Um, I hear people talk about that, well, I don't have time to get organized, or it makes a bigger mess, or I just don't seem to get there. And I notice a couple of myths with getting organized. And the first one is what I call the HGTV myth. The HGTV myth, we've probably all bought into this. Now, I love HGTV. I'm the first one to admit I've got a little bit of a girl crush on Joanna Gaines. But the myth is this: we see them get into a project, whether it's an organizing project, a renovation project, and they get busy, and lo and behold, in 30 minutes or an hour, it's all done. We cut to the end, everyone is smiling, the show ends, and they leave us feeling like it's done, and it's done forever, and they'll never have to touch this again. We all know that's not really the case, okay? We know things are going to get messy and disorganized. We're going to have to mess with them again. And another myth is I think the KonMari myth. And I talked a little bit about the Marie Kondo method, and I think there are pros and cons. But I think the downside is this feeling that we come away with, thinking that everything in our house is going to spark joy all the time. Yeah, and it's not. And so since these have not been our experiences, that projects they're not one and done, or that we go through and we declutter and everything then makes us happy all the time, we come away sometimes feeling like, well, why bother? You've seen the meme, I'm sure, on Facebook, where the little cartoon about cleaning house while people live with you, or while you have little kids, is like snuffling show during a blizzard. And it's very easy to get that feeling of, why bother trying to clean up, to declutter, to get organized, because it's not going to work anyway. Well, that got me to thinking about the 80-20 rule. I'm sure most of y'all have heard about the 80-20 rule. If you haven't, I think it came probably from the business world. And the 80-20 rule simply is that 80% of your sales, if you're in business, are going to come usually from 20% of your customers, or that 80% of the 80% of your efforts come from 20%. 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. Let me say that correctly, okay? So that got me thinking about our homes, and the fact that they're never going to be perfect, and the fact that we get to feeling, why bother, because it's never totally finished. How can we apply that 80-20 rule to our homes so that we focus our efforts in the places they will make the most difference? And I think it comes down to identifying what area in your home is driving you the most crazy. Now, I think we've all probably got an area in our house that is the hardest for us to keep clean, or to keep organized, or to keep decluttered. I'll give you an example. Our house that we had in Benbrook, learned to love the house, had this really cool retro, turquoise kitchen from 1959. But the minute you opened the front door, the first thing I saw when I opened my front door was my kitchen. And specifically was the kitchen island. And it became the plop spot. Everything in the house, when we walked in, got plopped down on that kitchen island, because it didn't have another home for it to stay at. And it drove me nuts, because it was always cluttered. It always had my purse, or the papers from school that I needed to sign for the kids, or it had the mail. In other words, it was just that plop spot where everything got plopped down, and it didn't go to where it needed to be. and it always looked ugly. It always was messy. It made me embarrassed to go answer the front door, and it drove me crazy. It was the number one spot in my house that made me want to pull my hair out or gouge my eyes out, perhaps. Once I finally got that spot under control, the rest of the house, or the rest of the kitchen at least, felt so much better. So here's what I advocate with the 80-20 rule. Figure out the number one spot in your house that's making you the craziest. What frustrates you the most? What gives you the most trouble? What is the hardest spot it seems like to keep clean or organized or decluttered? And put your efforts there. Because putting our effort in that one spot, once we get that spot done, man, we're going to feel better. My whole kitchen did not have to be spotless, but if that island was cleared off and looked good, I felt like the rest of the kitchen looked better, whether it really did or not. I felt better, it functioned better, I was no longer embarrassed, and I was not a screaming woman having a crazy fit because that area was driving me insane. So, we need to identify that particular spot and start there. And once we do that, we'll find that, wow, that really wasn't quite so hard to get it done. I had to in my kitchen. We finally ended up installing hooks for coats, purses, and backpacks, and then I had to get a mail place to go on my desk so that those items that kept getting plopped down had a place where they lived that was close by and that was convenient and that worked, and it was just as easy to put the stuff where they lived than it was to plop it down on the kitchen island. And that's key, is things have to function easily. Because if it's hard for our husband or our kids to go put something up, let's be honest, they're not going to do it, and neither did I. When I did not have a good place to put the mail, I was guilty. I plopped stuff down. I plopped the mail down right there on the kitchen island, and then I ran around and fussed because it was messy, okay? So we need to figure out the area that makes us the craziest, implement the solutions that will be easy to maintain, and once we do that, we're going to feel a lot better. Even if the whole kitchen isn't perfect, or even if the whole house isn't perfect. In other words, the return on investment to clean up that one major spot will pay a lot of dividends. What it usually tends to do is motivate us enough that we will go tackle some other area. But here's the thing. You might find that tackling that one area makes you go, it's better. I'm not going crazy anymore. It functions. It works. I feel better. And you might decide that this is good enough. And you might decide to stop. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that either. There is nothing wrong with deciding that good enough is good enough. We don't have to buy into that HGTV myth that every area of our house must be perfect, that it must be sparkling, that everything in it must spark joy. And I'm sorry, I find the spark joy thing kind of funny because, you know, I think we should be surrounded by things that we use and that we like, but my pen doesn't spark joy. I like it, but it doesn't spark joy. So I just find that kind of funny, and I guess I make fun of that phrase. But good enough in our home, as long as it functions well, as long as it's not driving us crazy. The whole goal is, can we find what we need when we need it with minimal effort? Okay? What we don't want to be is a slave to our house. We don't want a system that is so complicated that we spend all of our time maintaining the system, or that we spend all of our time running around behind our family members screaming and having a fit because they didn't do something, you know, the way that we want. Bottom line is this. The whole reason to getting organized, to getting things decluttered, is so that your home works efficiently for you, so that you feel good when you're in it, and so that ultimately you buy yourself the time to do the things that are important. And on our deathbed, no one is going to say, oh, but she had such an organized home. And on our deathbed, we're not going to think, oh, but every area was perfectly organized. It was perfectly clean. There was no clutter. Okay? Organizing is a means to an end. Okay? We want to have our home organized enough that it functions well, that we feel good, that we're happy, but so that we have managed those have tos in a timely and efficient way so that we get to all those want tos, so that we have time to play games with the kids, so that we have time to go on a picnic on a weekend instead of spending all Saturday cleaning up, so that we have the time to, go curl up on the couch and watch a movie with our husband instead of thinking, I must get busy in here and do this in the kitchen. So I think that 80-20 rule is something that we can keep in mind, that keeps us balanced, that keeps us from living in a home that's driving us crazy because it's too dirty, and it keeps us from living in a home that we feel like we must spend all of our time striving to get it perfect. There's no such thing as perfection. Anyway, those were just some thoughts I had about that 80-20 rule for organizing. I will be honest with you. I like things clean. I like things organized, but my house is not perfect. It's never perfect. It's never gonna be perfect, but it works. Okay, as long as it's efficient and it works for each of us, that's really all that counts. So I'd love to know what your thoughts are. A main thing is, I would really like to know, what spot is it in your house that drives you the craziest? I think most of us have one. Again, like Brenda said, whether it's the place where the husband comes in and plops things down. Mine was that kitchen island. So anyway, tell us in the comments, or tell us now, what area of your home do you feel like you will see the most result with by getting that area picked up, cleaned up, decluttered, and organized. And I'd love to know what kind of results that you get from doing that. So anyway, you may disagree. If you've got another opinion on that, my opinion's not the only one. We learn best from each other and by sharing our experiences and the things that work and the things that don't want. So anyway, I hope you ladies have a great day. Thank y'all for coming and sharing some time with me. My phone, of course, has decided to go off in the middle of this. So it just goes to show the little frenzy monster, she never, ever, ever, I'm going to decline that real quick. Hang on. The frenzy monster, she never takes a vacation. She's always around close. But anyway, thank y'all for sharing a little of your time with me. Leave me some information about how you think the 80-20 rule can apply to organizing your home. I hope you have a great weekend, and go tame a little bit of your frenzy.